I think it's true, and I think that it's just like, look at someone's checkbook or look at how they spend their money, you'll see what their real priorities are. In the same way, listen to what conversations we get in outside the classroom. That's where our hearts are. But I'm not gonna say that, if liturgy is your greatest love and you feel that liturgy is the way the church impacts the world today and so forth, and more power to you. I don't think it's a question of talking about liturgy or social justice. I think it's a question of talking about social justice as it applies to liturgy. I'll give you just two things to read. One is a passage from the Bible, Isaiah 1, the opening of Isaiah. Just substitute all Catholic symbolism for the Jewish symbolism. Instead of new moons and assemblies and octaves with wickedness, put in rosaries and liturgies of the hours and masses and things like that. And God is saying, it make me want to puke. Who asks you to bother me with this stuff? Get out of my sight and come back when you are taking care of the poor, essentially. That's the problem of liturgy. If it becomes all a question of how many centimeters, then we've gone far astray. But that is not to say that liturgy is not the source and summit of our existence as church. But the second thing to read to help you understand this is a slim little volume, I'm sure we've got it here in the library, and if not, I'm sure they'll track it down for you, by Monica Hellwig, German theologian, called The Eucharist and the Hunger of the World. You can read it in one sitting. It's great Lenten spirituality. You'll never look at the Eucharist the same way. So that's a very important comment. As far as the first one, my feeling, and as far as anyone I know really that I read and follow in social justice, no one is calling for that. Certainly not in this country. In fact, look at the handout I just gave you of some provocative quotes from Catholic social teaching over the years. But look at the very first one. They are mistaken who think that they may shirk their earthly responsibilities, nor are they any less wide of the mark who thinks that religion consists in acts of worship alone and the discharge of certain moral obligations. The split between the faith which many profess and their daily lives deserves to be counted among the more serious errors of our age. And if it's not in here, you'll find it elsewhere, like especially in Pope Paul VI's call to action, to Jes Manvanians and so forth. You'll find him talking about the need to engage in political life. Absolutely. The responsibility to vote, the responsibility to run for office, whatever, again, if Jesus had lived in a democracy, I think Jesus would have talked about some of these things, but he didn't. Does that answer your question as far as my opinion anyhow?
One comment and one question. The comment is, the congregation have just passed in Rome, I think, meeting, but in many places working the ACJ, but isolate. Okay. In Latin America, no have money for the work, the recourse for work is very difficult. But Rome, Germany had, but it's difficult to share it in the congregation. Do you know? But the question now is, what is your experience? But in people theology it's very clear for the people, and in America and Latin America had many experience for the populists. Many priests is the action, the justice or social work is populist in Latin America.
It would be populist?
Yeah. What is the change? What is the change for no work assistentialist? Not.
So yeah. You're talking about the difference in getting involved in political issues here in the United States versus in Latin America because of the very different contexts?
Yeah, but
and the role that priests might play?
Yeah, because in Argentina, I'm from Argentina, in the social justice is many, it's public discourse, the peronismo. The
Yeah, 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 yeah.
It's similar for Chavez in Venezuela.
Yes,
The
yes.
iglesia, in the first moment, the church, oh, it's okay, it's similar to the gospel, but you change.
Yes, yes. Well, I mean, I don't think in that way it's any different than here. You've got a lot of Christians who have said, Donald Trump, whatever you think about him personally, he's going to get us on the right track. He's what we need. You got people saying, because of my Christian religion, Donald Trump is Satan. And you got Christians who believe they should work for Hillary Clinton. You got, so deciding who, because if you're going to follow church teaching, you can't just live up in an ivory tower. Maybe as a priest, as a preacher, maybe you do have to do that a little bit, because you're constantly talking about ideals, and you're talking about first principles. How people apply those principles in their lives is really hard. So the best homilies I've ever heard are the ones where a priest says, well, look at this issue. Maybe we should do it this way. But you know what? Maybe we should do it this way. Yeah. Here's both sides of it. I don't know. I'm not sure. What would Jesus have us do? And make a couple. Maybe Jesus would talk about this. Maybe Jesus would talk about that. What do you think you should do? Because ultimately, it is up to the laity to do most of this work of engaging with the world. The priests are there to guide and to keep them on the right path. But the laity got to get down there in the muck and get their hands dirty and decide if they're going to make common cause with a populist party or something like that, or resist it. It's a very hard call. And I'm sure in Latin America, these calls are even more life or death. It can be too. So I don't have answers, but I think in one way it's the same no matter where you are.
Yeah.
Well, listening to you and everyone else just solidifies within me that social justice really has no place in politics. Unfortunately, that's how we move things forward, but social justice is social justice.
Are you saying it can't possibly be achieved by politics?
No, I'm just saying the concept of social justice really has nothing to do, should have nothing to do with politics.
You didn't hear me say that.
No, I said.
Okay, all right, good, because I would disagree. But say more about why you think it's, because I'm saying that the church has said politics is the way that we try to change society. Imperfectly, nothing we do politically can live up to the ideal of the gospel, but we have to try. You're saying that should have no place.
And I think, no, I don't
Okay.
disagree with that, but what is just, and what is unjust, and really, we might disagree with what that is, but really, justice is justice.
Okay.
So too many times we try to serve our own purposes and our own concerns, and that's why I think we get off kilter as to what we think is justice and what somebody else thinks is justice. If people need help, if they're struggling, we need to help them. It doesn't matter what your political.
Right, and it shouldn't matter what the laws are.
Right. So my question for you is, in your job daily, what do you do?
Some of the things I do for the SCJs, like maintain the website and put out a newsletter, and I try to find ways for them to stay and get educated and engaged. And occasionally, they might ask me to do more, like recently I went down to Mississippi and did a in-service on immigration. Our whole Justice and Peace Commission went down there and did an in-service for 200 employees of Sacred Heart Southern Missions. But in reality, a lot of my time ends up getting spent more here in the Milwaukee area, where I am physically most of the time, working with outside groups. So like one thing I didn't mention is that we are members of Seventh Generation Interfaith Coalition for Responsible Investment. Has anyone ever heard of ICCR, the Interfaith Center for Corporate Responsibility? It's a national group based in New York that was formed over 40 years ago, and one of the founders was a Capuchin priest who just passed away last year, Father Michael Crosby from St. Ben's. For 40 years, he got started fighting Joe Camel, Big Tobacco, and so forth. And he developed, they developed this interfaith organization, and then there are small regional groups. And so we cover the South, the Midwest, and we have about 25 members, mainly religious congregations, who have fairly large portfolios. I don't know if you know anything about shareholder resolutions, but in order to file a shareholder resolution with a company, you have to own at least $2,000 of stock, and you have to have held it for at least 1 year. We have that with a lot of stocks, and so we can engage those companies. We can use our power to work with the companies. Now, this isn't political, this is business oriented. You know, Democrat, Republican means nothing to these businesses, right? Whatever is good for their bottom line. And so we talk to them on that basis. We say it'll be better for your bottom line if you take care of the environment and make your business more sustainable at the same time. And they're coming to see it. They're coming to see it. We've had some big victories that way. So I end up spending a lot of my time with other groups like that, because quite honestly, most of our SCJs, they're so few, they're so overwhelmed with the ministries they're in. I can't go out there and say, well, here's what more you ought to be doing on social justice or something, you know. So they've got to figure out for themselves how that fits in to what they're doing on the day-to-day basis too. Yeah. Well, I think I've gone well over the time.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.